This is episode number 255, Double Nickels, with Richard Sneary.
This is the Plein Air Podcast with Rhoads, publisher and founder of Plein Air magazine. In the Plein Air Podcast, we cover the world of outdoor painting. Called plein air, the French coined the term, which means open air or outdoors. The French pronounce it plein air. Others say plein air. No matter how you say it, there is a huge movement of artists around the world who are going outdoors to paint. And this show is about that movement. Now, here's your host, author, publisher, and painter, Rhoads.
Hey there. Welcome. Thank you, Jim Kipping, my announcer, and welcome to the Plein Air Podcast. I'm Eric. It's been a whirlwind. Here's the deal. I have not done a podcast in a while, and I apologize for that. But, sometimes life gets in the way. It was real easy during COVID to keep them going. But now that life is happening again, it's a little harder to be consistent. But I try to be there every single week. But I had Fall Color Week, fine art trip to Sweden and Spain, vacation, Realism Live, a lot of stuff going on. I'll tell you more about that later. My goal in this podcast is to help inspire you to paint outdoors. Why? Because I believe that it makes us better painters. When we're outdoors, we're seeing nature. Plus, plein air is a cool lifestyle, right? So lots of people to paint with, hang out with, a chance to be with friends, being outdoors, expressing your creativity, and really seeing light and color more effectively. So this podcast is about plein air painting and everything to do with plein air painting, and a chance to learn about other artists and their struggle and see what that's all about. So I'm grateful to you. This show wouldn't be happening, and we wouldn't have millions of downloads if it weren't for you sharing it. So thanks for doing that. And we thank you for those positive reviews. They help. They keep us visible, and we love the comments. So keep it coming, baby. At the end of the podcast, I do the Art Marketing Minute to help you sell more art. And today we're going to talk about a couple of cool things. I get this a lot. How do you price your artwork? And the other is the controversy of AI, and how can you put AI to use to actually help your painting career? Well, we'll dig into that in a minute. So about the trip. In October, I was in the Adirondacks all summer because that's where I live in the summer. And I did my annual Fall Color Week this year in the Adirondacks, which is unusual. Last time we're going to do the Adirondacks. And it was the biggest, most attended yet, and it was spectacular. We all grew very, very close. We painted daily. We had a lot of fun. And we had all levels of painters there, all ages, the youngest being about 30, the oldest being about, 85 or 88. At the beginning, I noticed that there were a lot of new people and a lot of new painters. And so I asked how many were there that were new painters. And I got about 15 or 20 hands. And so I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do this week for you guys. This is not a workshop. It's a retreat, but anybody who wants it, I'll do a demo. And then I will work with you throughout the week. So I set up on the first day, I did a demo, knocked it out of the park. It was a decent painting. And then I worked with people, critiqued them, helped them throughout the week when we were painting together. And it was so satisfying to me. Now I understand why people teach. I don't teach, but I understand why how others do it now, because to watch the progress of people throughout a week, to see a night and day difference, it's so cool. Now you get that progress anyway, because you're painting 2-3 paintings a day, every day for a week. And so, but if you're getting help too, that helps. So it's different. It's not a workshop, but anyway, so I did Fall Color Week. And what was really interesting this year is that we have a whole lot of new people, like 30% new people. And also we sold out real early, because we only take 100 people, and we sold out I don't know, 4 months, 5 months early. And a lot of the people who normally go wait too long normally to register, and they can usually get in, but not anymore. We're already like 45 or 50% sold out, 55% sold out for next Fall Color Week, because we're going to do it at a Silomar in California. And we're selling out early. So I don't know. Anyway, what I did after Fall Color Week is I drove to the Adirondacks, because we have dogs and they can't fly, because one of them, long story, diabetic and blind. Um, so then we flew to Sweden. I took my wife, Lori. I met Peter Trippy, the editor of Fine Art Connoisseur. And we went to Mora, Sweden. And we had another friend, another couple join us. And we went to the Zorn Museum. And John Cederland, who is the director there, spent 2 full days with us. We saw everything, including behind the scenes things that people don't get to see. Part of the museum was closed. We got to go to the closed part to see things. We got to see things that were normally in storage, 100,000 items that Zorn had collected, everything like the costumes. We could touch, we had to put white gloves on, but we could touch the costumes. And I actually saw his shoes, little things like that. And I know it's crazy. You got to be a real Zorn freak to do that, which I am. And I asked John, I said, I saw his 4-color palette sitting there. I said, John, can I lift it up? Can I take a picture with it? And he let me. So again, I had white gloves on and I got my picture taken with Zorn's palette. So we started talking about Zorn's palette. And he said, it's myth. Zorn did not use a 4-color palette. He started out when he was young. He went to Madrid and he saw the work of Velázquez, and Velázquez painted pretty much in 4 colors because that's all there was. And he fell in love with Velázquez, and so he decided to start learning 4-color painting. And he did do that. He did a number of them, but most of his paintings throughout his career were not 4-color. But every time he did a self-portrait, every time he was in a photograph that he knew was going to be published, he had his 4-color palette. It turned out that was his PR gimmick, but he really wasn't a 4-color painter. They just did a new book. They did all these studies, samples, et cetera, x-rays of all of Zorn's work. And they actually created a book on his palette. It's called The Technique of Anders Zorn. Which is not on Amazon. It's only available through the Zorn Museum in Mora. I have my copy on the way. I didn't want to ship it. I didn't want to carry it. And it's spectacular. But anyway, he was not just a 4-color painter. So get over that. All right. You could do it if you want. Then we went on to our fine art trip from Fine Art Connoisseur magazine in Stockholm, and we toured Stockholm. We saw the Stockholm Museum. We went to Nick Alm's studio. We went to the studio of Stanislaw Zolidez, the great watercolor painter. We went behind the scenes in some museums, and then we did the same thing in Madrid. We had privately, we were in the Prado privately. We had 1 full hour before the museum opened in there privately. I did a selfie in the museum with the empty halls. It was amazing. The only people in there were us and the security guards. And we did the same thing at the Sorolla House. We did the same thing at a couple other museums. And we also had we went to this private home with one of the best collections in the world. It was really, really cool. So I actually got to hold Zorn paintings in my hands. It was really a nice trip. And then after that trip, I took a week off. Went to Mallorca. I painted in Mallorca and had a really, really terrific time. I actually, in one of the books that I bought, when we were in Spain, there were 2 different, because it's the 100th year anniversary of Zorn's death. They had like 30 exhibitions of Zorn going on in Spain, and 2 of them that we had not planned on seeing, we got to see. Both of them were plein air exhibitions. So it had all his plein air studies, his plein air work. Some of them were little tiny studies. Some of them he did one that was like 6 feet by 6 feet on location, and he did in 1 hour. of figures. It was just amazing to see. So I got some books, and in those books, I found out the locations that he painted. So I went and found those locations in Majorca and painted his locations. It was really like a bucket list trip. Anyway, we're going to get to our guest in just a moment. I came back from Spain. I hosted Realism Live, and that was really cool. It was a huge conference. Next one coming up is coming in January. It's called Watercolor Live, and it's just around the corner. It's 4 days, including the Essentials Day, or 3 days if you don't want the Essentials Day, but everybody does both. And it is turning out, it's going to be the biggest one we've ever done, bigger than even when people were during COVID. It is now the largest watercolor conference in the world, larger than anything in person or online. And we have some incredible masters, 25 plus masters teaching. So it's pretty cool. Then after that, we have the Plein Air Convention coming up in May. It's already so big that it's going to be the biggest Plein Air Convention ever. And we, at this point, only have 75 seats left, unless we can figure something out. So that's coming up in May. And then what else? I've got a trip to Japan I'm taking. That's pretty much sold out. So I can't invite you on that, but you can go to the next thing, whatever that turns out to be. Also, if you are not a subscriber to Plein Air Magazine, we would like that if you would consider it. We have print and digital. Digital has 30% more content for the hundreds and thousands of you who are listening around the world. Digital is a good alternative because you don't have to wait for the mail. But everybody else in the States gets both. You can go to pleinairmagazine.com. Okay, coming up after the interview with Richard, I'm going to answer your art marketing questions. You can email your questions to me at eric@artmarketing.com. So Richard Sneary began painting as an artist, primarily outdoors and plein air, in 2011. And after 40 years as an architectural illustrator and architect, he started drawing when he was 5 or 6. He did dogs and horses at first, later cars, planes, buildings, and whatever he was interested in. Architecture was his first love of his career and formed the foundation of his understanding of design, composition, freehand drawing, perspective, and the built-in natural environment, as well as many other aspects of his personal and professional growth. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. Richard, you are an amazing man. Welcome to the Plein Air Podcast.
Thank you, Eric. Good to see you again. It's been
nice to see you. You and I had a lot of time together when you were here in Austin filming one of your videos. We got to know each other pretty well during that. I asked you this question then, but I'm going to ask you this now. Why are so many architects, why have they become such great watercolor painters?
Well, I think we've learned that way. When I was in school, I think I started noticing that, and I didn't really notice it until I was probably a junior or so. And my professor that year was Curtis Biesinger at University of Kansas, and he's one of the right arms of Frank Lloyd Wright, and an extremely talented and expressive person. And he sort of started suggesting we try to do one of our presentations in watercolor. And I think that was the first time I tried it. And I thought, oh my God, this is tough. I did one that, wasn't worth much, but it was okay. Nobody else was doing them any better, but, we still had a lot to learn at that point. But so I did it that time, and I didn't really try anything like it for quite a while, at that point. But when I got out of school and started talking with other, architecturally educated people and architects, I kept finding that they were, some of their presentation stuff would lead into washes, doing things in ink washes and stuff like that. In my first year in design, actually the first thing I did was an ink wash. It wasn't what I would have called a typical watercolor, but it was in a way. It was just, monochromatic, grays and blacks and so on.
Yeah.
And so, I think that we were always getting opportunities to try different things at Kansas when I was there. And they seemed to make a habit of varying it, do it in pencil, do it in ink, do it in something else. And, and I took interest in all of that. And, I didn't really grab onto the watercolor too much. I tried it at that junior year, and I may have tried another one or so, but I don't remember it unless it was just a wash again. And so, I just, went on, got out of school and started doing, sketching and, sketch illustrations for the people I worked for, usually only on things that, I was working on, because I got pretty used to the fact that they kept wanting me to do presentations for them. And when I was still a student and working in Kansas City in the summers, I can remember learning to use pastel and stuff like that. And, and we'd always be in a hurry to get things out, and they had to have everything big then because you couldn't get photographs quickly enough for meetings. So we would, use these new pastels, that they still sell now that are, about 3 inches long or so. And we'd get a whole bunch of boxes and, break them in half on some of them. Others would be left whole, and then others would be break into different pieces. So we had the ability to get different strokes. We'd take sketches that we did on an 8x10 piece of paper, or less in some cases, blow it up at the repro dealer down the street, to 4 feet by 6 feet or something on that order, but pretty good size, so it would work in a meeting. And then we'd take these pastels and just, fill it in an hour or two at the max. And so I learned to sketch pretty quickly that way and at a big scale. And, as things moved along, people wanted more and more out of me. And I started doing airbrush stuff in New York when I was there, because everybody was, excited to have something that looked like an airbrushed Helmut Jacobi illustration.
Well, what were you designing? You were designing residential, commercial?
Commercial in all of these cases. So, when I was in New York, there's a lot of educational stuff because I was working for Perkins and Will at that time, north of New York and White Plains. And so I was always being asked, but I told them, I'll work on the projects I'm on. If I've got time, I'll work on yours outside of the office, but other than that, I'm not going to bother with them unless if it's interfering with my work. So they sort of learned at that point, to either have me on their team or wait and bide their time. So,
most of the architects most of the architects I've gotten to know, and who are artists, most of which are watercolor artists, are extremely disciplined people. And I'm wondering, I always heard that architecture school was about the toughest thing anybody could go through, equivalently tough, maybe tougher than medical school in some ways, because of the hours and the demands and which is trying to prepare you for the real world.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, that's an experience in itself. You're working day and night, staying up all night trying to get projects done, and your professors are encouraging you to do this and see another opportunity to make a change. They'll say, you could change that, you got time, and so we fall for that. And it is good advice, but the issue is it's never too late to get the right thing done. So you'd end up staying up all night 2-3 nights in a row, and it's like it was you still can fix it. You still
when you were 20.
Yeah, that's right. So it's part of the issue with American Society of Architectural Illustrators. Originally, this American Society of Architectural Perspectivists, which is ASAP, and we always sort of made fun of that. It was a great name, actually. Everybody loved it, but the architects really made fun of it, because that's the way they wanted it as soon as possible. And they were just as bad out of school as they were in school, with our professors constantly encouraging us to change. They wanted to change something in the last hour. You're constantly trying to keep up. And it's a pain in the neck. It's a 5-year program. I was in it 7 years, but
I'm not going to focus too much longer on
Yeah,
architecture, but I understand from a friend of mine, I think we probably talked about this, that the architecture schools had gone 100% CAD, and that they were finding that when people lacked drawing skills, they were not as successful in the world. And so he was telling me his daughter, who is in architecture school, has to take drawing classes, life drawing classes, and is required to do a certain amount of drawing every day throughout her 4-year curriculum, because they need to be able to sketch on a napkin with a client and say, hey, this is what it's going to look like. And they found that these kids didn't have the skills because everything was, on CAD or on an iPad, and you couldn't always have an iPad.
yeah, that's true. I mean, they went to what they called a BED program late 60s through quite a bit of the 70s. So people were doing architecture, getting degrees in 4 years. And when I went to work at University of Kansas, that was one of the first things we started talking about was how do we get these kids to do anything? And I told them, I said, the experience in the profession is that you're putting kids out there that don't know anything, that they don't have enough experience of what, design and drawing and everything else. And so we started looking at changing it. And, it was a matter of hours is what was the problem, was they thought they could get it done in 4 years like everything else. Well, it's next to impossible to get it done in 5.
Pencil time. Yeah.
So we started increasing drawing and stuff like that. When I was in school, it was like we had our own art professor. He was a sculptor and a painter. He was like an oasis in the middle of all of this, highly technical stuff.
Yeah.
And every time we were there twice a week, whether it's sculpture, painting, or whatever, life drawing even, it was like a relief. It was like being in an oasis and away from everything, and your mind was freer, and you had so much fun. And I'll never forget that. It was the best part of college.
So I'm gonna. You made a leap. I mean, this is a big leap. You decided one day that you were gonna quit a successful career as an architect after doing it for a lot of years and make the leap to becoming a full-time artist. What were you thinking?
Well, I've been through that in 74 and 75. I went through that recession that put more architects out of work than any other profession. And my firm was one of them. And, so I knew I had to change. And when I did that, I started teaching at the University of Kansas for 7-8 years. And then I also started illustrating quite a bit. I was always doing a little bit of it. And then the illustration took off. And then I quit teaching in 85 and put all my time into illustration. And I did well at that. And
you were illustrating buildings for architects.
Right. So, all over the world.
And so the idea was you would do a watercolor painting or drawing of a building in its environment, which you couldn't really get the same sense in a CAD world.
Oh, heavens no. I mean, it was hard enough trying to get it from the architects. You had to envision it. You had to pull photos from them, and you had to go online and find stuff. Fortunately, some of this stuff was occurring when you could get online, or you could find books about it. And so you'd have to, invent it.
So you became a professional architecture illustrator after leaving architecture as an architect. And then at some point you made a leap into fine art.
Yeah, it was kind of a stumble.
So, well, tell me about that.
Well, another recession. So in 08, the bottom dropped out. And, in 01, when the World Trade Center was hit and so on at 9/11, things dropped off then. It scared all the developers. And so things tailed off then, but we were still staying pretty busy. By the time 08 hit, dropped out for almost everybody. I was still staying busy and stayed busy till probably the end of 2010. Then I did just piecemeal stuff if people called. But in end of 2010, I think I had a friend or two in the illustration business that had switched over into doing plein air work or painting only. Tom Schaller was one of them that had done it, right not too far after 9/11. And he started, taking workshops and stuff like that, and started trying to develop his style that's pretty popular now. And, other friends, Stuart White out of Maryland, Baltimore, he was working in a firm there, and he stayed busy, up till he retired from the firm a few years ago.
Yeah.
But he had a firm that was providing me stuff all the time. But everybody else was sort of losing work. And at the end of 2010, I sort of decided when I went on a trip to Italy, and Bill Hook out of Seattle, then now he's out of North Carolina, kind of arranged for a thing. So our wives went there and had a great time in Civita di Monteratio, and just a little west and south of Orvieto, in between Florence and Rome. And, had a great time just painting outside and drawing and stuff like that. And I'd been doing a little of that during the ASAI conferences. We would draw and paint on Saturday before the awards banquet. And then we'd bring those all in and put them up for silent auction, and people would bid on them, and, and that kind of stuff. And it got my interest. I thought, so I like it painted out here. I like to draw out here. I did one of Unity Temple. I sat inside there, and I was surprised nobody ran me out. I was there.
Unity Temple was the Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah, Frank Lloyd Wright one. I
was
think
in
we have a
Chicago
picture of
or
it somewhere.
Clark, right?
But, I sat in there and I drew for, 2-3 hours and got the watercolor done on the thing. And I've never seen the painting since then, since I put it up for auction. I think they set a record bidding on the dang thing. So, I was falling in love with that from the first time I started doing these things in '89. And then I started taking workshops in 97 and 98, 2001, 2005, all that. So
So how important is that in the development you have today? It's a different world because you have things like what we do with these online conferences. You have videos, which were less available at that time. And of course, workshops. So
right.
Obviously you found it helpful.
Yeah.
How important is it to somebody who's looking at developing their career? What's your best advice for them?
I tell them take a workshop. I was in a different place. I mean, I told you I did a lot of sketching when I was a young architect, and that kind of thing. And I did quite a few sketch illustrations. But as I got better and more demanding, they demanded more of me. So they wanted more finite stuff. But so by the time I made this decision to go into plein air in 11, I was doing some pretty high-end illustrations, and tons of detail, and it took forever to do them. I can remember a friend or so asking him, "How long did that take you?" It's a really good illustration he'd done. He said, "Oh, I think I must have spent 100 hours on it."
Oh yeah, well, I mean, some of the things I've seen that you've done
that long on one. I said, and so I didn't spend that long, but I spent a long time. Nothing. Yeah. I mean, doing a plein air thing it's a sketch in effect.
You feel like you're cheating.
Yeah. But so it took me a while to make a transition from, and I'm still making the transition from doing really fine, detailed illustrations to getting into being a little freer and sketchier with my plein air painting.
So let's talk about that, because isn't that hard to let go of?
It is hard to let go of. I mentioned Stuart White. Stuart is always sketched, and his illustration style is always in a sketch mode. So his ability to make the transition was quite a bit quicker. And, he won Easton, only watercolorist to ever win Easton, and I think it was 2009.
Yeah.
So, that's a pretty big achievement. And,
So what is your best advice in terms of how to loosen up? If that's important to you, and you're getting too illustrative or too detailed, how do you overcome that?
Yeah, hopefully before you finish it or before you get started. So, you start out with an idea of what's there. If you, I think Paul Cratter and many people, and I've done it a lot, but not so much as Paul does and a few others, doing little studies first, little thumbnails and stuff like that to kind of get your focus on where it is. But I'm pretty good when I'm paying attention at getting a focus on something and seeing what I want. I tend to like things that are complex, and the issue is usually trying to make them simpler. And, trying to do everything in detail is kind of insane. People would say, well, you're still doing it, but I'm not really. I'm really loosened up from where I was when I started. And I can get quite detailed, but I usually try to keep it in the focal area. And I try the washes I put on are usually pretty mixed, pretty interesting mixtures of various colors and tones and cools and warms and so on, depending on what it is I'm painting. And I try to keep that loose to a degree. And the more I can feel like it's a sketch when I'm done with some articulation, the better off I feel. And, you've got to keep practicing it. I can't say that I practice nearly as much as people younger than I am do, because, I get tired, a little easier.
Oh, stop. Stop. I don't want to hear this old man.
And I get, it's kind of like when you're a kid, you're playing baseball one time, then you're playing football, then the next time you're playing basketball. You like the variety. I like the variety. So when I get done with this at the end of the year, I take it easy to a degree. So, and when I get home.
So you said you do a thumbnail sketch, but when you're doing your plein air paintings, are you going directly brush to canvas or brush to paper? You're not sketching things in, are you?
I'll sketch them in. Yeah. There's light lines in most everything you can see of mine. Some of them come through strongly, and, others you can't tell there's a line there. It just depends on how I'm painting, how much value and all that kind of stuff. But
so did you have an aha moment when you started going outside more and realize that things were different?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, as soon as I started doing that at our conventions, I started realizing how much I saw color and how much more relaxed I was while I was painting and drawing. I wasn't over a desk trying to worry about it. I was outside doing, and it was like, even if I didn't do well, if I didn't like it when I was done, I had a great time. I sit at a desk and work all the time. I end up with a hell of a headache at the end of the day. Hardly ever do that from outside.
So you started out doing sketching. You did some pastels. You ended up doing watercolor, but you've stuck with this medium. I assume you're not doing other mediums, right?
Yeah. I mean, once I started doing the watercolors, and that probably started in the 80s, I started getting a feel for them and as an illustrator. And I just, there's so much to learn with them. There is with every kind of painting, but watercolor's a particular characteristic that it's hard to match in anything else.
Well, you talked about playing football, then basketball, then some other sport. And I find personally as a painter that I get bored. And
me too.
But I don't just get bored with subject matter. I get bored with mediums. And so, I painted oil for the last 20 years when I started painting. And the first I ever did was watercolor as a kid, but I didn't pick that up. Now what I'm finding is a lot of the greats. I was just over in Spain, and Sorolla and Zorn were both watercolor painters. Sargent was a watercolor painter, and they did everything they did well. And part of the struggle that I think I've been going through is it's hard enough to do one medium well, let alone two. But what I discovered through this journey is by taking up watercolor, it's actually making me a better oil painter.
Yeah, my ex-wife is the same thing. She's still an excellent watercolorist, but she started taking up oil paintings. I suppose if I was a little younger, I might give it a try. But if there's some little thing going on that we're a bunch of people, trying to paint the same painting, I'll join in and goop
Well,
up.
I'm not trying to convert you.
No, I'm not going
I'm just
to.
curious about, you do have a lot of people doing multiple mediums.
There's
And
too
I think
much fun.
I think that's cool. As I mentioned to you before the broadcast, I've been copying Anders Zorn after seeing Zorn and then Stanislav Zoloff stuff in Sweden. I was so blown away by these watercolors. I thought I got to figure out how to do this stuff. And a lot of what I learned on Watercolor Live has stuck and come through, and I've been able to do it. But I am really enjoying the switch. I still paint in oil and pastel and everything else, but I am also really enjoying just the variety. I think one informs the other. So there are things that you do in watercolor that you don't do in oil. For instance, the thing that I find the most difficult in watercolor, guys like you must have to have very special brains, because you have to anticipate where the highlights and the light spots are going to be, because you got to not paint over those.
Right.
I'm used to adding paint on top of paint. And though you can do that in watercolor with some whites, it's not quite the same. So
No.
I think, in some ways, watercolor is, I think it's a harder medium in some ways. I probably get bad emails about that.
Yeah. Well, it isn't easy. That's for sure. And you work backwards doing it. Not always, but quite a bit. You'll work backwards, working from light to dark. And but you can kind of switch it around a little bit depending on what the subject is. But I think getting people started, though, you don't. When I was teaching drawing and stuff in the architectural department, I always tried to get them to see form first, see simple shapes and so on. And so I used to drag the students out to sort of get a feel there on campus, and so they could see the buildings, and I'd tell them, just focus on the buildings and the perspective of it, and try to, make it feel like you're right there, and keep your eye level, realistic on it, and, try to draw the buildings, then worry about the entourage that's there.
Yeah.
Because usually they're trying to learn to draw architecture. So, you keep it pretty simple for them, and you keep it in block form. Well, when I do a workshop, I usually try to get them to focus on, simple washes, simple subjects, and, nothing like I'd normally do. And I'll do demos that might be complex, but
What inspires you, Dick?
Well, light, like everybody, but the shapes. Usually it's the shapes, contrast, and sometimes it's the subject matter, just what's going on. Is it a harbor? Are you in a forest? What is it that's appealed to you? Why are you there? And sometimes when you're doing these plein air events, you sort of have a territory, and you may look around for a day and not find anything. And, when in actuality, you probably walk past 1,000 things you could have done. You sort of just have to get yourself focused on finding simple subjects and not necessarily be fantasizing about the subject you have.
Do you have that disease where you'll drive around for 3 or 4 hours trying to find a place to spot to paint?
That's tough. So, but you try to keep it simple, try to visualize what you're going to see in it. And, I'm looking usually for shape, contrast, and that kind of thing. So, without those, I'm not going to have much of anything.
Yeah. So
contrast is all about light. So.
Yeah, I was out painting we were out looking for a place to paint one day with CW Monday, and he said, "There's not 3 values. I'm not going to do a painting." He couldn't find 3 values. It was just a compressed gray day.
He could paint fine with a couple of values.
He can paint fine. So can you. So you're doing a lot of plein air events. That's really hard.
It is.
How many events are you doing a year?
I think I did 11 or 12 last year. So
How do you do that? I mean, you're never home. You told me off camera that you were gone a month and a half.
yeah, I was gone from early September to the end of October.
Why do you do it?
Well, there's 3 good ones in a row, and but I love doing it. First of all, my friends are painting there in quite a few of these. I'm painting around some of the best people in the country, and I get to paint. And why shouldn't I?
Yeah, but you can paint at home.
But not like that.
Yeah.
So it's not the same. I mean,
Well, you told me that being around other people inspires you.
yeah. I mean, you learn from other people. It's, I told you about playing basketball, all that sort of stuff. Everybody likes games, and but when you're trying to learn a sport or something like that, it's a game. You're having a good time. But if you don't like it, you're not going to play it again.
Yeah.
So when I found things I liked, I tried to play them with people that could play.
Yeah.
And so
I would say that,
the more I learn. So
yeah,
I learn a lot from the oil painters, pastelists, watercolorists. It's great fun. I learn something new every day. And this isn't about winning things. It's about learning.
great attitude.
If you're going to want to do this and you think it's a great way to make a living, the first thing I'd say to you is stop thinking about it as a way to make a living. That's the worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do is think about it, about something to learn. See if you can do it, and be persistent about it. And try. If you don't do well one day, do it again the next day. And,
well, I got to tell you that I would paint outdoors any day of my life if I could.
Yep.
But when there are other people around, it's so much more fun. Now, there are times when some other people, all they want to do is talk, and then you just want to say, go off and go to that tree way down there, far, far away, and talk to that tree, because sometimes you want to concentrate.
Yeah, right.
But being with other people is so much fun. Is there an etiquette of plein air painting in that regard, about talking and about, interacting?
You sort of learn that, certain people really focus and can't, be diverted very much from it. Others are quite capable of talking while they're painting, but almost everybody, once you get into a zone of, and focus on what you're doing and, and it's going somewhere, it's going to be a little hard for you to be talking about it. But, most of the time, you can kind of make sense as you're talking and, what you're doing and what they're doing. And, and every once in a while we'll stop and go over and look at the person, and they'll, ask a question or two about what they're doing because they're confused or something, or I'll do the same if they've come over, and, so you're exchanging things all the time.
Do you ever let what other people?
And there's a certain point where you just say to somebody, especially if you're in a workshop and stuff, there's going to be a point here. I'm probably not going to make much sense. So,
when do you know it's time to sell out on a painting and start over?
Oh God. Usually I know it pretty early. So I've got a ton of paintings that are halfway along.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of them that
you should do a half price.
I don't have enough time anyway. So I think, okay, this is okay. It's time to quit and move somewhere else, because we've got to be somewhere else here by the afternoon. And so I'll put it aside. And if I don't get back to that place again the next day, I'll take it home and look at it a bit and see if I can do something at home with it.
So Monet said 7 minutes, light changes every 7 minutes. Others say it changes every 2 hours. What kind of a window do you try to give yourself?
It depends on my brain. If I'm remembering the light, I can keep it. Yeah. But if I'm not, I can go a couple hours, then it's time.
Do you ever chase it?
You can't get it anymore.
Do you ever chase it?
Yeah. You just can't chase it, unless you've got to really set in your mind of what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then,
there are those days when
it's just fun,
there are those days when you're painting and you have, things are going really well, but you're not just completely in love with it. And all of a sudden the clouds or the light does something and you go, I got to lock
That's,
that in. You
that's
ever
true.
move direction?
Yeah. I have. So sometimes it doesn't work, but
Yeah.
it's not a good idea. But
Yeah.
every once in a while you find something changes and you say, actually, I think I can make that work.
Hey, talk to me about embracing the struggle.
Oh God. Uh, don't look at it as a struggle, I guess. Look at it as playing a game. Have fun with it. It's not a struggle. It's it's a struggle to get it where you want. And if you're persistent about what you and observant about what's in front of you, you can find ways to represent it. It's easy, most people won't say this, but it's easy to learn to draw something in its approximate proportions. And that's a mechanical thing, but it takes a long time to learn how to do that. But then when you try to move that into combinations of colors, rhythms, and patterns, you've got to be looking at it all the time. Does this color work with this one? Is there too much warmth here with the warmth behind it? Does it need to be cooler or whatever? Your brain starts working in that way, that as you put down color, you see what works and what doesn't work. And the more experience you get at it, the more you know ahead of time a little bit about what it's going to do. And I have a lot of fun with ones that are just kind of half done sometimes, but you just have to be persistent.
Do you ever let paintings sit and
Oh
go
yeah.
back to them?
Yeah, there's several sitting around right now.
Like how long? I mean, is it something you'll like?
Oh yeah. Let's see. There's one I've got here. I could probably show you, but nobody else could see it unless I hold it in the right place. But one I did in Easton, well, not in Easton. It was a subject I did in Easton several years ago, and it was a tractor at a farm, old farm, and it was under an old elm tree that was still a perfect specimen elm. And but I started focusing on the tractor. So when I came home, I thought that tractor's really pretty nice. So I decided to take up Tom. I forgot Tom's last name at the moment. At any rate, he had started doing watercolors on aquaboard, and so I had some, and I thought I'll try it on that. And so it's been sitting here for, I don't know, 5 years probably, maybe longer. It's almost done. I think I'm going to try to finish it this winter. But and it looks pretty good. So I haven't given it up. I just I'm not that big a fan of the aquaboard, but this particular time it was working pretty good. So I got it sitting here. I had it out the other day and looking at it, and I thought I'm going to finish this winter before I start on the road again.
So I'm going to ask you a tough question. It's not that tough. Plein air painting is a hassle. You're dealing with the elements. You have to make a point. You can't just walk into your studio and pick up a brush on something that's already sitting on your easel. You got to go out. You got to set up. Sometimes you're working on the same piece. You got to go up, set up the same piece in the same scene at the same time of day. It takes a lot of effort. Why bother? How much percentage of your painting life do you spend painting outdoors versus painting indoors?
Oh,
and then the rest of the question is, what's your best pitch to the people who don't do it, why they should consider it?
Oh, well, the best pitch is the only thing I can tell them is if you want to see color the way that you can, go outside. Paint things in real life. Don't work from a photograph. Photograph is set. Even if you're painting inside, paint the junk on your table. See if you can see the color the way it is, the shapes, the shadows, and so on. And focus on that, not on the photos. It's always good to remember something if you're not there anymore, to have a photo of it, but you really miss a lot if you aren't there, if it isn't there in front of you. And you can, fudge it and move things around and all that stuff, but the color and the shapes and the contrasts, they're all there in front of you, and you can't get a better sample of that than being there. Doing nudes and stuff. You have a set light and so on, and the light changes to a degree in a studio, but it's pretty set. You're still painting in real life, and the colors are there in front of you. You just have to learn to see colors and what they do with regard to what you're focused on.
Yeah, even if you're doing a still life with flowers or something.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, CW does, has all kinds of ranges with what he does. If he's painting something outdoors, it can be practically abstract. And if he's painting a still life, it looks like a photograph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's still abstract.
In a way, but there's a big difference.
But you can tell.
CW does outside what he does inside.
Yeah.
It's a still life anyway.
So you teach a lot of people. You have a lot of people who follow you. I love to ask people like you if you have anything special that you like to share with people about plein air painting or tips on painting. You have anything that comes to mind?
Oh, geez.
I know I should have prepared you for that question.
Well, I mean, I think I've said several of the things. I mean, it really, if you haven't painted outside, you're missing a great opportunity to experience what it's like, and find a good place. Find a place where it's shady. There's a little breeze and you like what's in front of you, and just sit there as though you're, going to eat an apple or whatever, and, draw. Have fun doing it, and if it turns from a drawing to a painting, great. And, and if you're all done, you like it, do it again. You'll find it's always a pleasure to do it. There's no better way to spend a day in terms of an artist than to be in a place where you can paint what's in front of you. Whether you make changes to it or not, it's peaceful. It's spiritual. You find your brain getting into that and relaxing and learning as you go. And the best thing that can happen is you learn something new every day. And, at the end of the day, if you've got a good painting, wow, that's pretty good.
I had a bad day the other day. It was like, on the scale of bad days, it was an 8 out of 10. And I was super stressed, and I grabbed my easel and I set it up, and I didn't want to do it, but I had to get away, right? I had to get my brain away from it. And I'm painting for 5-6 minutes, and all of a sudden I had completely forgotten about what was stressing me out. And I got a couple hours of peace, and it just, you talked about that ability to escape and to have that meditative effect. That's really wonderful.
That's right. I was going to say, it's really meditative.
So the big debate among some is, okay, you've got a beginner. You got a lot of people who have never painted in their life before who are listening to this. We are seeing 20-30% people showing up at things like the Plein Air Convention, Fall Color Week, et cetera, who have never painted before. And they're going there saying, okay, I'm going to go there and learn. If you had a brand new person who's never painted before, are you going to teach them to paint in the studio, or are you going to teach them to paint outside?
Well,
Is it better to say, okay, learn how to mix color and do all that stuff inside, or is it better to start from scratch from the outside?
I think you can do it anywhere, but I teach my grandkids when they were growing up and gave them a chance. I didn't really try teaching them. I'd show them a few things, but we'd go downstairs, but Christmas or whatever, Thanksgiving, and give them some paper and some paints and let them do what they wanted to do. And I just try to show them what the water and the color mixed on the paper would do, and that they didn't have to make anything. They could make puddles, and just drop paint in and see what it does. But you want to keep it pretty simple so it's kind of fun for them. And that's what I would do even if they were outside, conventions and that kind of stuff. It's like, you're definitely going to have a bunch of people that haven't tried this before. But try to get them to pick something simple and just learn how to mix the water and the shapes together, and and see how the paint works, and don't worry about it any further than that. Yeah. It's like you're not going to make a masterpiece 9 times out of 10 anyway.
Most of us won't make a masterpiece in our lifetime.
Probably. So,
I mean,
when you compare, worry about it. It'll happen if it's going to happen. But other than that, there's the worst thing you can do is stress about it. So, and I learned all about that with architecture and architectural illustrations. It doesn't help you at any at all. It's your persistence and your intent to try to do the best you can, and learning as you go. And you just, when you're at this point of a situation and you're learning to paint, this is fun. This is like you're in kindergarten again.
Well, I think, it's really interesting to see your life, because you have, you kind of picked up this plein air circuit a little later in life, and you're going out and you're working like a madman. I mean, 11 events in a year is almost unheard of for anybody. And to do that much work and that many events, but you're having the time of your life. I mean, you're hanging out with your friends, you're with them a week or two at a time, you're painting with them. You're outdoors painting, you're painting in interesting places you're not getting to paint. And, you also get lucky and make a sale here and there, which doesn't hurt.
Get an award.
I think that's a pretty cool life. And, I'm a little jealous of that.
Well, get out there. You can come with us. Just apply. There's a nice one not too far from you.
Yeah, well, I need to do that, I guess. But anyway, Richard, this is
your things in the Adirondacks and all that. So
yeah, I do 2 or 3 times a year where I can really get out.
We had a great time in Cuba.
So yeah, we had a really great time in Cuba, didn't
we? Some of us painted well, some of us didn't. And
that would have been me that didn't
well and bad. So, but we had a great time. You and I were painting together when we were there at the cathedral in the square. And I think we talked a little bit, but most of the time we're trying to figure out how to do those curves and arches and everything else in front.
Oh, those women were coming up to us in their costumes with their cigars. And bugging us.
That's right. So
it was a lot of fun.
Some of us painted them, I think. So
yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, Richard, this has been a delight. I want to acknowledge you. You are a true inspiration to our world. I can't use the word industry because we're not an industry. I don't want to say that we are, but you are an inspiration to a lot of us. You're doing incredible work. Your work is getting better and better. It's just amazing to see, you just keep, I didn't think you could get better, and then you just keep getting better. So thanks for the inspiration. Thanks for being on the Plein Air Podcast, and we will see you out there.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing this, because that means a big amount to all of us. The fact that you push us all the time is made a big difference, I think.
Well, that's very sweet. Okay. We'll see you.
See ya.
All right. Our guest today is Richard Sneary, and you can find him at richardsneary.com. Richard, again, thank you so much. Okay, it's time to go to the Art Marketing Minute.
This is the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make More Money Selling Your Art, Proven Techniques to Turn Your Passion into Profit.
Okay, so I don't get, we have a thing here. I don't see the questions. I don't prepare the questions. I am taking this off the top of my head, so I may completely blow it. But I'm basing this on a lifetime of experience in marketing, not necessarily all art marketing, but a lot of marketing. You could send your questions to me, eric@artmarketing.com, which, by the way, artmarketing.com has a lot of really great stuff on it for free. Or you can come onto the podcast sometime and ask your questions, but just send a note to us, eric@artmarketing.com. First question comes from Maureen Shelton Wallace in Tennessee. And the question is, how do you know how to price your paintings at what? How do you know that's grammatically incorrect? How do you know how to price your paintings and not price oneself too cheap? Well, pricing is it's the biggest question I get. I get literally hundreds of questions about pricing all the time. Nobody knows how to do pricing. And pricing is all emotion of very little logic. And the reason for that is that art is not something that is easy to compare to. I mean, it's easy to say, okay, there's a difference between a Volkswagen and a Honda and a Rolls Royce and a Bentley and a Lamborghini and so on. There's a difference. But a lot of that is actually psychological. I mean, why is one car $30,000 and another car is $130,000 and another one is $600,000? At some point, there's not that much better car under the hood or that much better paint job. As a matter of fact, I heard a statistic. This is probably dated. I know it's dated, but at the time I heard the statistic, a BMW 7 Series was selling for, I don't know, let's say $100,000, and a Bentley was selling for $250,000, and the Bentley, the body and the chassis are very, very close to the same. And there was only at the time an $18,000 difference between manufacturing the BMW and the Bentley, made by the same company. Yet one was twice or three times the price. Why is that? Well, Bentley is about status. I always look at cars as like a giant picture frame around you. Some people identify, with a gold frame. Other people identify with no frame. So pricing is emotional. It's about status, but it's also, there is some measurable quality, especially in a world of realism. In the abstract world, it's hard to measure quality because it's all about pure creativity. Whereas you can tell if someone is good at drawing or good at painting. And of course, there's a lot of different styles, and what you love is going to resonate with you in a different way. But ultimately, there is a little bit of measurability, but not a lot, because you have seen paintings, and I've seen paintings, and I won't mention names, but you've seen paintings, and you go, how did that person get so famous? Because their paintings to me, don't seem very wonderful, and yet people are spending big money on them. We see that all the time. I had I had a discussion with an art gallery I was in, and I went into the gallerist I was invited in, and they said, well, okay, what about pricing? And I said, I would like to be the most expensive artist in the gallery. And they said, but you're not the best artist in the gallery. I said, who's to say? And they said, well, we don't think you're the best artist in the gallery. You're good, but you're not great. And I said, well, I get that, but someone is going to walk into that gallery who doesn't know the difference, who sees something that emotionally resonates with them, and they're going to go, I want that. And if that person happens to be somebody who doesn't have any price sensitivity, then then it really doesn't matter. Now, the things that you can do to elevate your price are branding. Branding elevates your price. If you are T. Allen Lawson, you can get a whole lot more money for your paintings typically than I could, right? Because everybody knows he's a brilliant painter. Everybody knows his work sells for big money. Everybody knows that this guy is at the top of the game. And a lot of that happens over time because of doing a lot of shows, developing his work, uh, and also galleries and others advertising the work and branding the work and so on. He that's not a word. He deserves it well. But there are people out there who can simply advertise their work and increase their prices because people recognize their name. And when you're in a situation and you have painting A and you have painting B, and you have one who is not known and one who is known, and you like equally the two paintings, you're likely to choose the one that you know, because it's like when you go into a store and you can buy a t-shirt with no logo on it for the same price as a t-shirt with a logo on it, and you happen to identify with that brand, you're sometimes you feel a little weird buying something without a logo on it. I'm the opposite. I don't like to wear logos. I don't like to advertise other people's stuff with my money. But anyway, that works. So how do you price your work? Well, first off, when you're starting out, you've got to get a feel for it. You just got to get used to selling work. And the environment has everything to do with the price that you're going to get. You're not likely, I can't say this is totally true, but you're not likely to get a $10,000 or $20,000 price for an 8 by 10 or 20, 16 by 20 painting until you've got your brand developed, or until you're in a gallery that is selling other $16,000 or $20,000 painters. If you're doing an art show in the local art center, everything in that environment is likely priced low. So, you might see some $50 paintings or $300 paintings. And if people are coming in there for a Christmas sale, some people who don't know the artists are going to just pick something they like, and they're going to pick something that's priced within their range. Other people are going to go, hey, I have no problem paying $350 or $1,000 or whatever it is. But when you start getting into the bigger money, then other things factor in. So if you're like just starting out, just start showing your work somewhere. And what I used to do is I just say to people, make me an offer. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to know what the market would bear. Well, some people would come in and make me an offer of $50 and I'd take it. And some people would come in and make me an offer of $500 and I'd take it. And sometimes I'd say, that's probably not enough. I was out painting in Banff in Lake Louise one day. A guy came up to me and he said, so how long did it take you to do that painting? And I knew exactly where it was going. And I said, well, 2 hours and 20 years. He said, what do you mean? I said, 20 years to learn how to do it in 2 hours. And he said, oh, okay. And he said, what would you take for that painting? I said, well, I don't really feel like I want to sell it because I'll take it back. I want to keep it. It's a memory, but I'll take it back, frame it, probably send it to my gallery. They're going to sell it for quite a bit of money. But, he says, well, would you take $50 for it? And I said, thank you. No. But to him, $50 was probably a lot of money. So you got to be really sensitive to those things. But I think just experiment. If you read books on pricing, one of the things that they talk about is that you keep raising your prices until things don't sell. And when they don't sell, then you back off one step, and that kind of determines your pricing. TV companies do that all the time. So I think you just got to hit and miss, try a lot of different things. There's not an exact formula, but if you want to sell things and advertise them, brand yourself, and do it over time. It doesn't happen overnight. People don't see everything every time. You got to be out there, and environment makes a big difference. You know, if you're selling at a flea market, it's a whole lot different environment than if you're selling at the Palm Beach Art Show, right? Because somebody will walk into the Palm Beach Art Show and drop $250,000 and not bat an eye, where somebody might bat an eye spending 20 at the flea market. So environment makes a big difference. Brand makes a huge difference. Okay, next question. We have had a lot of questions from people about AI, so we don't have a specific person on this. AI to help your marketing. How can AI help your business? Which AI software tool should I try? Well, first, let me just say this. A lot of people are coming out against AI. A lot of people think it's a terrible thing, that it's going to ruin the world, that it's copying and stealing your stuff. And there are a lot of lawsuits flying around, and there's going to be a lot more of that before it all settles out. The same kind of thing happened when Macintosh first came out and Photoshop first came out and the laser printer first came out. You know, this is going to be the death of graphic design. And, you know, in some ways it was, because a lot of people could do their own, but it just changed things. It wasn't necessarily the death of. The reality is you can go into a program called Midjourney, which I use all the time. I use it pretty much every day. Midjourney, I went into Midjourney and I said, I would like you to generate an image of two women standing by a lake with a mountain in the background, fall leaves on the ground, and fall color. I would like them dressed in 1950s outfits, and I would like it to be in the style of paint by number. And it spit out 4 images. I didn't like them, so it spit out 4 more and 4 more and 4 more. And I picked one and I used it to promote Fall Color Week. Perfectly legal, perfectly able to do that. And it was almost perfect. Sometimes they're not almost perfect, but it's getting better and better. In terms of ways to do it, there are AI programs now that you can use to build your social media. The key to all AI is what they call the prompt. And the prompt means that how you ask the question is how is going to give you the right response. If you say, give me an image of 2 women painting by a lake, that's one thing. If I give them more specific instructions, and that's another. So I use AI on a lot of different things. First off, I use AI to write things for me. If I have a long presentation I need to create, I'll go into AI and I'll say, build me a presentation, and I want a heading over each paragraph, and I want 10 paragraphs, and I want 10 steps towards this particular thing, and write it for me. And, you know, 80% of the time it's like really, really good. Sometimes it's not. And so you can use things like that for preparing presentations. You can actually use them to build slides now. You can use them to build video. There are programs that you can use to build out your social media. I have gone in and said, okay, this is the message I want to send. Build me 15 social media posts, and then it'll and give me ideas for images. It'll build me social media posts, and then it'll give me ideas for images. Then I go into another AI program like Midjourney. I'll say, you know, build me this image. I have not yet figured out how to build my own image into those images, but it's coming. AI has that capability. I did get very close with Midjourney. And so there's a lot of things. I use Chat GPT. I have a membership. I use Midjourney. I am really in love with the one called Bard by Google. That one's really, really terrific. And again, there's AIs for a lot of different things. We have AI programs that work with some of our software. So if somebody's buying a video, AI will say, oh, you bought a portrait video. Here are 3 other portrait videos you might like. So it's a recommendation engine. This is changing the world. It's changing marketing. It's going to get to a point where it's going to be really, really, really a good tool. And it's already pretty good. I probably save, right now, I probably save 10 hours a week using AI. That's 10 hours that I'm getting back to use for other things. And I can see coming to a point where it's going to save me 50% of my time. you can even say, build me a calendar to do this, to do that, schedule this. I mean, you can use it for almost anything. It's going to get to a point where it's going to become very valuable. So you could do it, say, build me an ad, use this image and build me an ad concept. Give me 13 headlines. I went into Chat GPT and I needed some quotes for social media. So I said, go to my daily show on YouTube, Art School Live, and go in there and pull 50 quotes from that. And it did. And I had them in 3 minutes. And then I said, okay, go into my blog, Sunday Coffee, and pull 50 quotes from that and put my name at the end. And it did. And so I was able to use those in social media. And then you can use AI to import them into Canva, and Canva will create images. Canva has AI now. So there's a lot of different things you can use. So I know it's not specific. It's very random, but it's going to change things. All things change all the time, and change is good. It's beautiful. It's nothing to be frightened of. Is AI going to take over the world and eliminate human beings? Well, some people think so. And if so, hey, it's been nice knowing you. Okay, that's the Art Marketing Minute. I'm Eric Rhoads, and I hope it helps.
This has been the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads. You can learn more at artmarketing.com.
Hey, thanks for your tolerance today and listening. I want to thank Richard Sneary. It's been really terrific. He's a great painter. Check out Watercolor Live. You would really like it. Watercolorlive.com. Check out the Plein Air Convention, pleinairconvention.com. And if you're not a subscriber to Plein Air Magazine, you will like it. It really is really, really terrific. It's the originals, 20 years old. Hard to believe. Wow. If you've not seen my blog where I talk about life and things, Sunday Coffee, it's just go to coffeewitheric.com and check it out. And I'm also on the air daily on Facebook on Art School Live. We have, millions of views. It's been really cool. It's there every weekday, 12 noon Eastern. Subscribe on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and look for Art School Live or me. And then follow me, Eric Rhoads, at Eric Rhoads on Instagram and Facebook. That's me, Eric, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazines. And we've got a ton of great newsletters, too, that are free for you. So check them out. Thanks again. Remember, it's a big world out there. Go paint it. Bye-bye.
This has been the Plein Air Podcast with Plein Air Magazine's Eric Rhoads. You can help spread the word about plein air painting by sharing this podcast with your friends. And you can leave a review or subscribe on iTunes so it comes to you every week. And you can even reach Eric by email, eric@pleinairmagazine.com. Be sure to pick up our free ebook, 240 plein air painting tips by some of America's top painters. It's free at pleinairtips.com. Tune in next week for more great interviews. Thanks for listening.